Meeting. It's 2 after 6. Mr. Lang, please take the roll.
Mr. Leary?
Here.
Mr. Leahy?
Here.
Mr. Artie?
Okay. Mr. Lang, we can begin, I guess, with the budget information as of March 30th of 2011. I don't know if Madam Superintendent, you want to begin and go into it first, and then have Mr. Lang take us through it.
Thank you. This is our quarterly update to the committee, and at this point, we will be going over our balance sheet, and we are looking strong going in to our last quarter, which is a relief for the administration, because as we have spoken about many times now, we are looking at a minimum of a $5 million deficit this coming school year for FY12. We are presently planning to offset that deficit with the Ed Jobs money that the school committee set aside in the fall, which is obviously a big relief given the fact that we've had 6 years of cuts and layoffs to date. So Mr. Lang will go over some of the significant projections that we think will help to offset some of the burden of any additional layoffs or cuts that we may have to experience. Mr. Lang?
Thank you. The first sheet that you have, the cover sheet, is the quarterly report that we generally look at every 3 months or so. It's a compilation of all the individual line item accounts within the school department budget that we use to just provide up-to-date information to the committee with regard to where we stand on our finances. As I've done in the past, as you know, the school committees, school districts are somewhat unique because you have employees that receive payment, some over 42 weeks, some 52. We have some administrators who are 44. It really runs the gamut. And our salaries are actually paid out and encumbered based on a 10-month school year, as a 10-month school year as opposed to annualized 12-month payments. So for the committee, I do a salary projection, and this is as late as this morning using the last week's salary data. And our liability through June 30th and all of the summer pays as of today was $38.2 million. This is on the second sheet, my note sheet, and our available salary funds at $39.4 million. So as of today, we actually look to have a potential surplus of $1 million, just short of $1.2 million overall, which in the scheme of things in years past, obviously we always want to have a surplus as opposed to a deficit, and we've come and made some one-time purchasing recommendations, typically in May or June for non-recurring charges that would happen in a particular year. $1.2 million is a good number to have at this particular point of the year as far as all of our cumulative salary accounts are concerned. To put in some context for you, our weekly payroll, 52 weeks a year, is just a little over $2 million. So you're looking at less than, or approximately half a week's payroll in excess at this point of the fiscal year. But I'm feeling confident in the at least having a surplus and not a deficit in total. Last year, and we've been trying to get to at least $1 million in potential rollover money for next year. We funded this year's budget, fiscal 11, with $511,203 in some settlement money that we didn't have to utilize during contract negotiations. So that kind of created a structural deficit for us in 11. So we want to be able to make up that as we go into 12. As well as unemployment, we had to put about $500,000 aside at year end to help out with unemployment costs because of the volume of individuals we've had to lay off. On a positive note, our unemployment costs have also trended far less than we had anticipated. The city funds approximately $340,000 annually for school department unemployment, and then we fund unemployment as well. As of today, we've expended the city's $340,000 that was budgeted, and on our side, we have $517,000 still left encumbered for unemployment costs. But I'm projecting, if all goes well and we don't have any major claims between now and the end of June, probably not needing more than $100,000 to close out this particular fiscal year. So potentially there's another $400,000 in unemployment funds that we won't have to expend, that we can either look at as a possible one-time purchase money. We could use that as our set-aside for unemployment for fiscal 12 as we're doing our budgeting. We can coordinate that with the city manager's office and the city auditor's office. It gives us some flexibility when we bring forward the fiscal 12 budget. So really on both fronts, as far as total salaries go, as well as the unemployment front, I'm very comfortable and happy to report that we're in good shape with regard to that. Our other more equipment, non-personnel line items within the budget are steady, nothing out of the ordinary that I would see at this point in the fiscal year. A significant, or two significant accounts that have some vulnerability in the past that we really had to watch closely are our electricity and utility accounts for natural gas. As you recall, last fall, we transferred those accounts of the management to the city, so we really don't have to worry about that in our budget anymore. Our budgeted revenue and expenses went to the city side of the budget to be managed under the Amoresco performance contract. We have sufficient funds in particular, you'll see transportation has about $400,000 remaining. That's in special ed funds for special ed transportation. That does fluctuate based on individual needs or new children that may come to the district and have an IEP that calls for specialized transportation. So we have funds on reserve to be able to help out with that. Our out-of-district tuition, is good. We have all of our contracts and all of our purchase orders encumbered at this point in the year, and we have $100,000 still in balance. That's a volatile account and can obviously change based on students coming or leaving the district. But again, I'm comfortable with that particular account at this point of the year. I'd welcome any questions, but overview for this point of the current fiscal year, I think we're in good shape. What I would recommend is when we reconvene at sometime at the end of April, early May, take a look at what our fiscal 12 budget recommendations are going to be. Possibly at that point discuss if we want to consider some one-time purchases or if we'd like to hold some funds over to help with the fiscal 12 budget. We take it up at that time, and I'll provide you another budget update then.
Just quickly, do we have any idea as to when the state will come up with their numbers for Chapter 70 and for the local side budget? Do we have any idea? And I know that usually it's beginning of March. That's why we set this meeting now to kind of begin the discussions on it. Do you have any feedback from them at all?
I don't. I know our hope when we scheduled the meeting was to be able to talk about current fiscal year budget and give that overview. And the second part was really to be able to have a more in-depth conversation about fiscal 12 planning and where the Chapter 70 revenue is going to amount to for Lowell. We're very pleased, obviously, when the governor's budget came out and had the increase in Chapter 70 funding for education. It was tied to that foundation budget inflation factor at the federal level. We're hoping that is going to maintain, but we still don't have numbers from the state. I did speak with a state representative today, and they're expecting sometime in April the House budget will come out. The Senate budget will lag, possibly a month later, but we just really don't know at this particular point in time, and we can't really begin our budget process until we really know those numbers. I do know from just conversations with the city manager and the CFO, they're also just waiting for the state numbers. There's just no way to project what we'd be looking at without having those figures, at least from the House, to get a sense of how it's going to tie in with the governor's budget.
Madam Superintendent.
And I do think there's a general consensus around the fact that it may be later than expected. So just like 2 years ago when we went through a budget crisis, every 2 weeks there was a worse scenario. So I just want to set the expectation for the committee right now that people still really are wrestling with this, and it may not be on the traditional timeline going forward. But as Mr. Lang said, the fact that Lowell Public Schools has been designated as a foundation district and our enrollment is up, both are positive with regards to our funding formula and how that works for us at this point. And that has been confirmed to date as stable and a good number, the number that we've been given. And the Department of Elementary Secondary Education is pretty confident that it'll be close to the number that we have been given.
Just not to follow up on that just yet, but a quick question I had regarding transportation. Do we know what the costs are for the regular services? Do we have a contract proposal, or where are we with next year's transportation costs?
We have two contracts. We have North Reading Transportation provides our regular ed student big bus contract, and SPNR provides our special ed contract. With regard to North Reading and the regular ed transportation contract, it was originally bid as a 3-year contract with an optional 4th and 5th year extension. I believe at the last school committee meeting, the committee voted to enter into the 5th year of the contract. The rates were very advantageous to us given current market rates and other bids that had been received in other districts. the service has been very good, and we obviously want to continue with that. So next year, we do have fixed rates for those buses, and it's per bus per day. So there's really no volatility or flexibility with that. That's a pretty fixed number. Where we see some variation is within the special ed transportation, whether it be small buses or 7D vehicles, wheelchair vans, things of that sort. And at this particular point in the fiscal year, like I said, for our planning purposes now, I'm feeling very comfortable about that number, as well as next year. We are in year, I believe, 4 of a 5-year contract for those rates. So those rates are locked in per vehicle. The only variance is depending on how many vehicles we actually have to put on the road to take care of the number of students that we may have.
And just, I guess, one more follow-up, I guess, regarding, is the administration preparing for proposals for what are they prioritizing proposals? Should we begin in the positive in terms of what we would want to bring back first? I mean, is that something you're working on internally? I know right now it's premature to do it because we really don't know what the numbers are, but is that an ongoing dialogue at this point?
Yes, we have many, many needs across the system, from technology to paraprofessionals that we laid off last year, and the impact to small group instruction at the K-8 level is significant with regards to how that really will impact, we think, student achievement. So technology, our libraries, and aids are at the top of the list, but there's many things on the list that we can talk about at another time.
All right, are there any questions or concerns at this point? Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. I apologize for missing the beginning of the meeting, and I don't know if you've discussed it all. Remind us, what is the stimulus money that we put aside? Is that
4.8?
Yeah, the net is 4.8. It was complicated with the way the funding came with us. The Ed Jobs money was really, I believe, 6.4 million. And then what the state ended up doing was reducing the amount of stimulus money we were getting in 12. The governor reallocated some of that money. The net effect of the Ed Jobs money was 4.8 million. So that 4.8 million is what we as a committee and department rolled to fiscal 12, because we can use that in fiscal 12, as well as actually the first quarter of fiscal 13, if there were any funds that aren't expended at that time. But that was going to be pretty much the $5 million pool of funds to help us with that $9.5 million deficit for next year.
But that's money that we won't have after.
The year after, right.
Because it's one-time savings that we were able to hold on to.
Yeah, that's what we need to be, and we've talked about just being
That's what we
cautious
talked
about,
about
because
before
we're
you came
building
in.
the budget on that really
Because it
structural
almost
deficit.
seems like as tough as this year is going to be, next year
Right.
could be as difficult.
Right, it's another 5 million. If we were to look at 5 more million this year, that would just be so devastating. So that picture is still facing us next year.
Right. Thank you.
So, I guess, is there any discussion from the state in regards to the fact that we're going to be facing again, even though we could be positive in theory this year, that the following year we'd be back in the hole because we have one-time revenue? I mean, I guess that's, Madam Superintendent.
I heard Mitchell Chester, the Commissioner of Education for the state, talk about 2 weeks ago to urban superintendents about the budget situation that we're in now and going forward, and just the level of accountability that school districts are and will continue to be held to in the context of doing with less. The level of funding that we have received in the past, people just don't think that it's going to rise to that level again. And costs are escalating in the areas of healthcare and other significant areas of our budget that we're not in control of, which ultimately impacts the classroom. So we will, continue to wrestle with limited funds for many years, I think, to come.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. Just to kind of add an additional comment to that, on Tuesday, the Mass Association of School Committees had their annual Day on the Hill, which Mr. Leahy and I attended that. And many of the legislators, in particular the Ways and Means Chair for the Senate and the House, they were clear to emphasize to the room full of school committee people that the state is facing $1.5 billion deficit, also coming off stimulus money that's no longer there from the federal government, and that there wasn't a willingness, again, this was only a few speakers, it's not the whole, House and Senate, but that their sense was there's not a real willingness to raise taxes, to raise the income tax, say as was actually asked back to the 1999 levels. So without additional revenue, the state is facing a very tough hole, and I believe one of the senators made the point to us that the governor's recommended budget, which they haven't, got their proposal together yet, but one of the points that struck me was they talked about, this particular senator pointed out that in the budget right now we have for children who are on welfare, who receive welfare, they get a clothing allowance of $150 a year. So if you can imagine what you can buy for a teenager for $150 a year, that's been completely wiped out in the governor's budget. So I think in terms of getting help from the state, we'd be lucky if we get the education funding that's in the governor's budget, and there was a commitment from the legislators who spoke to us that they're going to try to make that happen, as well as circuit breaker, to try to fund the circuit breaker program. But I think the message we got loud and clear was the state is it's got its own hole that it's dealing with.
Just a quick question regarding the 4.8 million stimulus, and that was like a 2-year time frame. It was federal money. It's a 2-year time frame to spend. You couldn't roll parts and pieces of it over to a third year. Is that correct, or a longer period of time?
No, it could either be spent in current fiscal year 11, fiscal year 12, but there was a rider on it that allowed for a provision where just all the funds had to be expended by the district by, I believe it was September 30th. So technically, you could fund the first quarter of fiscal 13 with any remaining funds. They really don't want you to turn back money. So if you happen to
No,
have...
I don't think we would turn back money. I'm just kind of getting an idea as we plan going forward. What are those time frames? I mean, I'm not even,
Well, you
I don't
definitely
know
have
where I would go with it, but just to have the
Yeah.
knowledge of what.
You can spend it in the first quarter of 13.
Okay.
But they really, want the money off the books by then.
Okay. Mr. Conway?
Mr. Chairman, actually, that was the question I was thinking about, because it was my understanding that it could go into the third year. I didn't know if it'd stop at the quarter. If it goes into the third year, is there any stipulation on the percentage of money that has to be spent in that second year, and what could be carried over for the quarter? And also, I'm wondering whether, does that have any type, if we carry this over, does it have any type of adverse effect on any additional stimulus money that might be coming in from the federal government or the state?
With regard to the first question, there is no cap on how much you can actually carry from one year to another. So we have the total of 4.8 million, and we can use it really in any fashion that we decide to over that 3-year period. So we could, right now, we're anticipating using the 4.8 to fill the gap for fiscal 12. We could say we wanted to use all 4.8 in the first quarter of fiscal 13, so that's totally at the purview of the committee. Our intent had been to have it fill that $5 million hole for next year. I forgot the second part of your question, I'm sorry.
There's no more stimulus money that we're aware of coming at this time.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying, if there was any additional monies coming in, would it have any effect if we did carry over any type of monies into that quarter?
I haven't been told.
No, we haven't been advised one way or the other from the DOE on that. I know that as a federal measure, the state generally would not penalize you for receiving federal funds or carrying over federal funds from one period to another because they're on a different time schedule. But we haven't really received guidance one way or the other on that.
Thank you. That's actually what I was trying to get at, whether there would be any type of penalty to us in that. Thank you.
And just for edification, the first quarter for the school department ends September 30th as opposed to March 30th for the business thing. Any other questions or concerns? Mayor Malinazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Lang. The heading on the quarterly report where it says expenses and, is that encumbered?
Encumbered, yes.
Encumbered, okay. Why wouldn't, as an example, the teachers line, item 11, why wouldn't all of that $28 million be encumbered?
Oh, we don't encumber salaries.
We don't encumber
No,
salaries,
I'm sorry.
okay,
On all the salary accounts, they're not encumbered, so their
Okay.
money is just listed as available.
okay,
Any of our supplier non-personnel costs
Okay.
do have encumbrances, and we just lump those two columns together
Okay.
just for appearance.
okay. And then one follow-up question, on line item 24 under rentals, do you anticipate needing any additional dollars going through the end of the fiscal year?
No, we contribute as part of our budget a set $100,000 fee every year for the parking
Okay.
garage, and that's for our high school staff and people at teachers from the McDonough Freshman Academy that park in the parking garage. We contribute 100 in cash, and then any overage gets applied as a credit towards net school spending at the end of the year. So that's just a one sum payment we pay annually.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Just one last one on the long-term substitute account. Is that, I mean, it seems like we're carrying, or we've spent probably more than we normally do. Is that something, or less than what I thought we would have spent by this time frame?
Yeah, the long-term sub-account, I actually just calculate into the regular salary accounts with all the other teachers.
Okay,
Because that is an account that we will fund kind of duplicate positions. So you may have a teacher on the regular payroll
Yeah.
who's out on, say, maternity leave, and their sub is getting charged out of that account. For the purposes of my budget projection, I take that total $1 million revenue and I hold it against the liability. So that's included in the $39.4 million available funds, that $1 million. The day-to-day sub-account, if you did a per-day projection, right now, the day-to-day sub-account is actually coming in at $1,040,000. So if things held true for the rest of the year, it'd be about $40,000 over budget. But we do know at the end of June, there are particular schools like high school, when the seniors graduate, those teachers don't have to be replaced. We're going to come in right around the $1 million mark. Again, we've been pretty consistent with that.
good. I think if there's any other questions or concerns, Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. On the day-to-day substitute, though, were we looking to improve that number with the early release days?
The early release days really benefited us and allowed us to reallocate some funding that would have been used for PD, primarily grant-related. The day-to-day sub-account that's listed in the local budget is only for teacher sicknesses. So the release days, we've been able to actually cut down on the amount of grant money or other funds we've been paying teachers, paying for teacher subs when the regular classroom teachers go to workshops or trainings or whatnot. But that wouldn't be reflected here. This particular line item is only for sick absences, and it's been pretty consistent over the last few years.
All right, thank you.
I've had no other questions. I take this as report of progress for the first quarter report. Motion, second by Mr. Leahy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Yeah, we got one more thing to do. Motion to adjourn. The most fun part of the meeting. I guess what we want to do now is turn it over to Headmaster Ed Ramirez regarding what we're doing up at the, Rosemary, excuse me, what we're doing with X2 and some of the technology costs going forward for right now, what you're doing at the high school and hopefully for next year. Ed?
Okay, thank you. Is this an okay place for me to speak from? Do you want me to move out there? What works? Okay. First of all, I think you all have a packet of information. This is some of the paperwork that was given to families and continues to be available to them about the program. Just a little background, we decided around Christmas time and coming back to school after Christmas that we would try to open up our computer system to families and students to give them access to grade books. And they have access to a lot of information that we have available. Our goal here is to increase the communication and also increase family involvement. The first paper that you have here starts off with the heading Legal Parent, Legal Guardian, Family Portal Guidelines. And I'll just read, I won't read you the whole paper, but the first paragraph, I think, gives the philosophy of what we're trying to do here. To assist parents and guardians in monitoring their children's progress, enhance communication with parents, and further promote educational excellence, Lowell Public Schools is pleased to provide access to student records through the Aspen Family Portal. Now, many of you may be familiar with the name X2. X2 is the company name that developed the program. They've been bought by another company. The program continues. We continue using it. The program is the Aspen Family Portal, so that's what we're going to refer to it as. If you're familiar with X2, that's what we're talking about. With the Aspen Family Portal, legal parents, legal guardians will have access to student attendance, schedules, and grades. Parents of high school students will be able to see assignments from the gradebook of participating teachers. Parents and guardians may log in anytime from anywhere they have a secure internet connection and may see current information about their children. Most importantly, the Aspen Family Portal makes legal parents and guardians partners in their children's education. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make them available. So ideally, this will put to rest a lot of questions, confusions. Why is my son not doing well in class? What do you mean he had 10 absences? Parents can just go right to the computer, look it up. They'll see attendance. They'll see what days their son was marked absent. They will be able to see with participating teachers what the assignments were, what the grades were for each assignment, how they're calculated, what the final grade is. So there really should be almost no surprises for parents who get involved and stay involved in this. We're rolling this out as a pilot program at this point. We have a group of about 25 to 30 teachers who, starting after Christmas, came to some training sessions and have learned about the system, have learned how to convert whatever system they're using. We have some teachers who currently use computer systems and currently have made grades available. There are programs that people can buy privately, and there are teachers who've been using those. They were really eager to get on board with this. We have some teachers who see this as the coming future and wanted to start learning about it. We have some teachers who aren't familiar with using computers but just wanted to get on board with something. So sort of running the gamut of experience there. But as I said, a group of about 25 or 30 teachers who right now form our pilot group. These teachers are putting their grades, their assignments, their homeworks, everything on the computer system. So parents who have students in those teachers' classes will be able to see the grade book. Any parent of any student will have access to get on, see data like attendance, MCAS scores, whatever else. And Mr. Liu is with me. He's going to show you how the system works in a few minutes. But as for the teacher part of the information, you know, the homework and the grades and the tests, that's right now limited to this group of about 30 people. So if your son or daughter has that teacher, you have that access. The idea here is, right now it's a pilot. We're going to see how it works. We're going to make sure it works. When it's working well, we increase the scope and draw in. Ultimately, I'm sure we'll be going to using something like this for everybody. Right now, everybody does use this system for attendance. Everybody does use this system for end of the year, end of the quarter, end of the semester grades. This is the program that prints our report cards. This is the program that keeps our transcripts. This is the program that keeps our discipline records. I neglected to say that before. That'll be available to parents as well. So all of that stuff, teachers are already using, already familiar with. Really the new part is getting those homework assignments and every grade entered into the system and available. I'll take you through the paperwork you have, and then in a minute, Mr. Liu will walk you through the computer system. We announced it to students. We announced it to families through their kids. We send note home through the kids. We put it out on the website that we're doing this. The first step is this paper that I just read to you the beginning of, the guidelines of the system. Parents who are interested, parents who want to take part in this, need to contact us at school. And they'll get this form. As you open through it, you have the guidelines. The last page of the first stapled piece, so page 4, is the Family Portal application. So parents will get this and complete this application form. This is what we use to make sure that we're connecting up the families accurately. The purpose of this is so that one parent who has 2 or 3 or more kids in the system, more than one, won't have to sign in individually under each student's name. You know, Mr. Smith can sign into the system, and then all the little Smiths are there. And whether they're high school or even younger, they can have access to that. So you see here on the application, we're getting guardian name, parent number 1, parent number 2. At the bottom is please identify any other children you have in the system. So that's what we use to double check and make sure we're linking up the right people. Once we get this form from the family, we get it entered into the computer, we get it set up, and then the next 2 pieces in your packet, one is called student letter, and then the last one in your packet is the family letter, the family portal notice. This letter then, once we have the completed application, this letter goes out that contains, blacked out on this sample, but will contain their account number and their password and specific login information. So this is unique information that each family will have to sign in securely through the internet and get into the system and access only their students' information, so that we don't have, shouldn't have security problems. The student letter one is a similar letter going to students. Each student will have his or her own access and password to, the student can check up. And so students can get online, see how they're doing, and cut down on, hey, how am I doing in your class? Or being surprised by, progress reports that come out and they say, hey, how come I'm getting whatever? If students make use of this, there shouldn't be surprises. So that's the paperwork we're using. It's basically, it serves as the guidelines so that we have, it's like our acceptable use policy, so that families and students know what's acceptable use, what's not. It gives them information on how to access the system and how to use it. I guess I'll stop here and see if there are questions, and then I'll let Mr. Liu talk through the system.
I guess just, Mr. Conway, go ahead.
Just a few questions. The X2, just for point of clarification, has that been taken over by this Aspen? Is that the name of the company?
Aspen is the product. Maybe you can answer. Aspen is the product. X2 was the company name, and X2 is bought out by Follett?
Follett Software.
By what?
Follett Software.
Okay.
They're heavily into a variety of different educational services, but most widely known for their library software.
Okay. The X2, with all due respect to X2, it certainly did go down quite often, and we had problems with it, and I assume that has been taken care of over the last few years. Do we have, if there's a problem with this, because this is obviously a pilot program, do we have access to members from that company that would be there on site to help us out if we have any issues with the product?
We don't have on-site relationships with them, call it to our school type of relationship. I do have a phone relationship with a number of people directly at X2, whether they're customer service people or they're higher up within the company. So we have pretty much immediate access to them within several minutes if there's an issue.
And
aside from an issue that happened just several days ago, we have been pretty clean this year. And the issues that we had several years ago as we were coming online with them have really been alleviated.
Okay. How confident do you feel that that system is secure? Because it obviously, a lot of people are going to be tapping into it. And I understand that, and again, I applaud you for this because I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea to get communication with the parents so they can take a look at it and be part of their son or their daughter's education and to see firsthand what's going on. What about do you feel confident about the security or the confidentiality of the process?
The issues that we would run across from are really self-created in the sense that we have to make sure that there's one parent or one mother or father that's linked to all of their children, opposed to having 5 children related to 5 different moms. Okay? That's the purpose of that first part of the application, is to make us aware of and to ensure that we can make all those links correctly before we send home a blanket password in. As far as security goes, they run the same level of security as a bank does. So I have no fear that, as far as security goes, that there's an issue
I'm
there.
glad to hear that. What about in the area? Is this system being used in the area?
They're widely used throughout Massachusetts, primarily on the eastern side of the state. Locally, there's us, there's Haverhill, Amesbury, Chelmsford, North Andover.
Did we,
there's
did we
quite a bit.
check to see if there was, how satisfied they were with the system and whether there were any problems that we might encounter? By
Before-
kind of like going to school on them, should we say?
Oh, sure. Before we opened the portal, I surveyed a bunch of the schools that are that are X2 customers. The initial draft for the family portal application came out of Manchester, New Hampshire. The student letter was originated out of Saugus. The family letter was originated out of Walpole. And then customized to meet our needs and our students and what we're providing. Everybody that is with X2 is a happy customer. Certainly, there are things that we would like them to do better, as there would be with any company. But X2, being a local company out of Hingham, really provides us an opportunity to give feedback, and they listen to what we say. And a lot of the enhancements that they do every year are direct relationships and questions and what we are asking for. So,
Again, I applaud you for taking this initiative. I think it's extremely important, and I also, again, I applaud the teachers that have, what did they do, Mr. Rosemaric? Did they volunteer for this project? Again, I want to congratulate them for that too, because this is, it's the beginning of something that, we should have, and I think it's something that's been long overdue, and again, I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
I think, too, part of the reason to bring it here tonight is not only from a financial pieces, but also to introduce what they've already begun as a pilot program. I think Mr. Leahy and I had talked about this because schools throughout the United States are doing this, from Chelmsford, which is our neighboring community, Stanford, California, and all these others, like, what's the other areas where some of your friends are out on the West Coast, have done this for years. So it's something that the technology, when we first purchased this product, I think, 4 years ago, we knew the capabilities were actually within the system. It was a question of going through initially, getting the data that a lot of, you did when you were at the high school, putting it into the system and learning about it. Now we're going to evolve into the next area where now we can have parent usage of it. And a lot of the parents that, I think most of us speak to want to have access to this information. And I think bringing the headmaster in with his folks to explain where they are right now so we can have the questions that we're having and then start rolling this out not only within the high school, but looking at the middle schools and the elementary schools as pilot projects is really where I think we need to start beginning that discussion. I don't know if there's any other questions with regards to the data we have in front of us now. I think we could probably, Mr. Rosemaric, go through some of the actual process of what one would do.
Okay, well, I'll turn that over to Mr. Liu. He's got the screen set up for you, and he can show you what the screen will look like.
okay, whoops. When a parent or a student logs in, they're essentially going to see the same thing. I'm in what's called the student portal, which gives students access to their information. So when they sign in, they can only see their stuff. The only difference between the student side and the family side of the portal is that when a parent logs in, if they have more than one child, they get to choose the child first before they go and see their stuff. Otherwise, everything else is identically the same. Okay? So when you log in, this is the page that you get. Right now, it has a welcome message explaining that this is a pilot program. It also has an area that I put up today, letting them know the basic announcements that today was the end of the third quarter, tomorrow's the beginning of the fourth quarter. It has a basic calendar, which is nothing more than a calendar itself, just so you can see what it is. And then, although for this student, this area is on the bottom left is blank, it keeps track of kids' attendance and changes in grades and tells you what's happened either today or the last 7 days or 30 days or 60 days. So just to let you know that something's changed. On the Pages tab, it's really like your home page, and that's why home is selected first. But under the Schools button, we have two separate school sections. The first one right now is called LHS Announcements, where we're posting the morning announcements that are read in the morning online, so parents and students can see them throughout the day, because students come in at different times and parents are looking for what's going on at the school. This gives them an idea of what's happening at the school. The student portal page provides, again, entry-level information, but in what's called the blog section, which is really a one-way communication. It's not an interactive piece. Lets them know what's going on. They can choose from a variety of different things. So there's the end of quarter 3, beginning of quarter 4. Teachers, and I don't have one on this particular student because this is a training module that we're running. Teachers also have their own pages for their own classes. So teachers that are involved can have a page for their class, and they can provide students with a variety of information about what's going on in class now, lessons, handouts, that a student can come in and get right off of the website. My info is really about, I know he's Einstein. I had to pick somebody. And this is really about everything about the student's name, what school he's going to. At this particular time of year, it has what school they're going to next year. So 12th graders don't have a next school, and anywhere from our 8th graders within the district on through the current juniors, our tag is going to Lowell High School. Addresses, oops, and I missed something. I timed out.
This actually, what you're seeing right now actually is a safety feature. If you're inactive on the system for too long, it will time out and shut it down, and then you just need to sign right back on again.
So we have the students' names, their addresses, what their photo is, and this is what we've seen so far is parents have been able to catch some of our inaccuracies that it may have been on file for a long time or that we were never notified that they actually moved. So it's a good way now for us to keep this stuff up to date. Students' contacts, list anybody that the student has a contact with, their mother, their father, could be neighbors, aunts, uncles that can also pick them up. Attendance is daily attendance, and this is for, are they in the school? It has nothing to do with the classroom. Transcript will show, and this one here doesn't because I don't have anything in there, will show what the kids' grades are for the current year. So they can see what the grades are by quarter. And we've added something this year that we're still working through, but I wanted to put available is what's called graduation summary, which tells the students their progress towards graduation and how well, how they've met certain requirements in graduation. Assessments, really what we have is the MCAS area, also in there, but not available through the portal quite yet, is some of the MEPA and MELA scores and a variety of other assessments, but we've got to make sure we get them right before we make them available. Students can actually see on the reports section, a report called MCAS Summary, and this will tell them, oh, he doesn't have anything. We hadn't set that one up. That will tell the student their progress towards their MCAS requirements towards graduation. So the student can see their progress since they entered the school district, and if they've met the requirement for graduation, it will tell them that also. And right now, high school students are in the middle of scheduling, so parents can log on and see what the students' requests are for next year. They can see their current schedule, and this is there's only 2 classes in here. And again, graduation progress is the same that was in transcript. So there's a variety of things that they can see. They can also see their schedule in what's called a matrix view, so they can see it more gridded out. The high school currently runs what's called a 10-day cycle based on when classes run. On the academics tab, looks similar, but it really has everything to do that shows everything that's going on with the classroom. So you pick a class and you can check the checkbox, or you can click on the course number. You click on details and you get to a summary of where your grades are. So that's just an overview of your grades. Individual assignments tells you what your assignments are, what your grades are, no score, I didn't pass it in or hasn't been graded yet. and attendance tells me my attendance for that particular class. So this is different than school attendance, because a kid or a student can be present for school but miss a class for some reason, whether they're at a meeting or elsewhere. We'll leave it at that. Also from here, students can print their schedules. Just run it. Jay must not have.
I'll just clarify, this is a dummy student that was made up and some data was fed in, so we're not seeing
Yeah.
a full layout of what it would look like for a real student.
So students can print their schedules as well as their report cards. So a student can see a copy of their report cards, and a parent can see a copy of their report cards, just in the event that a copy gets lost between school and home. So once we publish that the report cards are accurate. And the report card process at the high school is a 2-week process. By the time the quarter closes, and then teacher enter their grades, and then the housemasters deal with other issues that affect grades. By the time they come out and we print and we verify everything, right now it takes about 2 weeks to get those out. So you can see the process online by running the report card, but then for our report cards, they won't be accurate until April 15th. Okay? And then the kids have a calendar. And this is what's tied to the teacher's grade book, as well as what you saw as the assignments on the other side. Because in the calendar, and you have all of the assignments for all of your classes. You give, in the preference side, this is your classes and everything else that has to do with it. You can click on any of these and choose a color. And that's not going to show, but whatever color you assign to it will show up, it shows up in here. As of this is based off of the assignment, when the assignment is due. And then you can pick on any of these, and let's see if I can get that. When you click on whatever the day you're looking for, it tells you, based on what the teacher puts into their grade book, what this actual assignment is. So this will help parents know, is something due? It's not going to tell them whether their son or daughter did the homework, but it will tell them that something is due, and parents can then ask their son or daughter, did you do it? So this is the open communication that really happens between parents, students, teachers, knowing the grades, knowing what's been turned in, patterns of not doing homework, patterns of not doing well on quizzes, various other issues that may be in a student's educational involvement. This is going to bring this together, so that we're not going to really see the issues of parents calling teachers to find out, is homework being done. They can see that right live. And it is live based on when the teacher puts in the assignment or when the teacher grades it. Okay?
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a very impressive presentation. Right now, you said you had 30 teachers, up to 30 teachers utilizing it. How many students are actually part of the program right now?
We've got, based on the applications that went out and the requests that came back in the ballpark of 150 students who have signed up to get a password, and about the same number of families who have gotten the password.
And how many months have you been running this right now with them looking into this?
It's really, we started our process with getting the system up and running and getting our teachers trained in January. We've made it public just about a month.
Okay.
So what we're hoping is that it will continue to grow, even tonight with this being televised. I hope people see this and call the high school and say, hey, I want one of those passwords. And we're going to continue trying to get the word out there and hope word of mouth and further, it'll grow.
Mr. Conway?
Just a mechanical question here. We're talking 30 teachers, is that correct? 30 teachers? And how many students? 150 involved? So there's not that many students then from each, is it? I'm sorry, I'm a little
The
confused.
students who get the password aren't, they need to ask for it. So with 30 teachers, obviously 30 teachers at about a caseload of 120 to 130 students per teacher out of their 5 or 6 classes, yeah, we should have more students involved. But the
But what I'm
150 are
saying
the
is,
ones who've asked for it.
those 30 teachers, are they taking their, let's assume for argument's sake, they have 100 students. Are they doing this information for 100 students?
Oh, yeah, the teacher just posts his or
Okay,
her,
okay.
all the grades,
I see.
all the homework, all the assignment.
But as
It's
far as the
going in system.
passwords, it's just
The
a
password then
handful
is
at this
the
point.
access to it. So
I see.
the information is there from those 30 teachers. Those teachers are putting all their information, and they'll have homeworks, and they'll have grades, and they've got their grade book. The next question is, who wants to look at it? And that's where we have the application form, and the students and the parents need to sign on and take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. I have to say, this is one of those many times when I'm very thankful that I graduated from Lowell High School in the 80s, because my mother would have been on this all day, every day. I just have a couple quick questions, and I agree certainly with my colleagues that this is an exceptional program. It is exactly the direction we've wanted to be moving in, and it's very impressive to see it kind of starting to unfold before us, so congratulations on that. In terms of the communication capacity within this, does that exist? Is it expected that it would, so that, always trying to streamline this process? The parents looking, they see a problem, can they request a call from a teacher? Can they, send in a note, an email to an administrator? Is there that capacity or the potential for that in the future?
Yeah. With every student's schedule, you can see here on the screen, there's a primary staff email field. Every staff member's email is in X2. That's the school email. So every single teacher that a student has, they have direct email access to them, to whatever channels they use for email.
The system itself is not a communicating system. So we have the email addresses available, and that'll help facilitate it. There was, if teachers choose to make use of it on the teacher page, it's really one-way communication. The teacher can post notices, the teacher can post reminders. It's not an interactive email or a blog site or anything like that. It's not a social networking site. So teachers can put out information, and then return information really needs to be by email or phone calls.
Which is, certainly understandable. And this was, this is more my curiosity than anything else, but with the purchase and, with Aspen as the kind of product name at this point, I'm assuming this was a module that was created, that we purchased in, January, that really just was an overlay to X2 as it existed, that there's no additional data entry that happens with this, that there's no transfer of information. It's really one system, and this is a program that draws from that.
In fact, Mark can correct me, but we didn't even purchase anything new in January. We just made use of things that it does already. It's been there. We just had to make use of it and start taking advantage of it.
The only real cost to getting the portal running is obviously man hours to get the connections correct within, and relationships correct within X2. But also on the report side, getting reports designed to run within the portal, not just within the school. For example, when we run report cards at the school, I run 3,200 report cards in one big file. When a student runs their report card in the portal, it has to run just for them. It's the same report, but they have to reconfigure the report to run just for the student. So we pay for that service to take any report that's generalized for mass production into a single student use.
Well, thank you very much. Those are my very few questions. I think it looks great.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you. One quick question. How do you want parents and students to get involved? Do you want phone calls to the high school? Is that how you want to roll it out as we get more students signed up? What is the plan for getting hundreds of students signed? I mean, I want to
Okay.
run right home and talk to my kids about it.
Well, there's several ways. We did send, or at least attempted to send, as best you can do with a high school student, a copy of the family portal access form home with every student. But just like back in the 80s, a lot of kids were afraid to have their parents involved because they had to see that, that 70s, 60s. So they're afraid, a lot of them have kind of issued, I don't want my parent looking over my shoulder. But it's not a bad thing. So those forms all went out. The form is posted on the high school website. All they have to do is go to the parent page, and at the top of the parent page of the high school website is a link to get this form. So they don't have to call the high school. Certainly they can do that. We'll get a form out to them, either however they want it, or we can email the form to them if they email us at aspenportal@lhs.lowell.k12.ma.us.
So if I, just to follow up, let's say you go on the website, you get the form, you print it out, you fill it out, give it to your student.
Yep.
Where does the student bring it at the high school?
Student brings it to their advisory teacher, their homeroom teacher.
Okay.
The homeroom teachers then bring it to the house offices as a consolidation point, and then they bring them to us.
Thank you very much.
I guess, so when are you going to track the results? Are you taking like some type of measurement, Mr. Rosmerick, regarding the success or where you're making, where you need to make changes? And
We're not, I asked Mr. Liu just before the meeting, this isn't counting for us, like number of hits or anything like that, so we can't track that. Our tracking is really how many applications we're getting. We don't then have information on how many people, once they have the password, truly keep up and use it. That's really up to them. We're hoping to see our numbers grow and grow, and we'll continue trying to get the word out, and I think with next year, you'll see another big push to get this out there and get more and more applications back in.
I guess to Madam Superintendent, I guess, do we have plans to start rolling out pilot projects for the middle schools yet? Is that something we're looking into for next year? If not, can we, I'm sorry, Mr. Superintendent, then Ms. Larraba. I mean, I think that's something, an area where we'd like to really, we need to pilot it, obviously, to work out any challenges that we may have, but I think do we have something already in existence, and are we discussing this, or should we start to discuss it if we're not doing it?
We have had numerous discussions about our technology, how we use it throughout the system. And just to follow up on a question Ms. Martin asked with regards to when did we purchase this equipment? And it is a sad tale again of budget reduction. The capacity throughout the system has existed for 4 years, and it wasn't until we reconfigured a couple job descriptions last winter at the high school, we brought it forward to the committee, and Mark was hired. And really with the idea that we need to go in this direction, we didn't have the capacity at the high school to do it. We knew we weren't going to have any more dollars to do it, and we put together the job description that the school committee thoughtfully approved, and this is really the result of that journey, which began 4 years ago, and then we really ran up against tough financial times. And unfortunately, K-8, we have eliminated many of these positions that would allow us to do it. Recently, we did hire 2 techies for the system. That conversation, as well as other needs, are being discussed with those new hires. So as we go forward, we will be bringing to the committee the priority for technology in the system. But the need is great when we're talking about just even fixing printers and printers and computers and just the basics. So it is a need across the system, but it's a powerful tool that we're glad that we finally got launched at the high school.
No, and just before Ms. Larraba speaks, I think that's kind of why we brought it before the Finance Committee, because we really want to see what resources, and that's kind of with my lead-up question too, we should be doing this everywhere. I know it should be piloted because you got to start out slow to make sure you ensure that you're doing it right and it's effective and it's meaningful. I guess we need to know as we go forward, what resources do we need in next year's budget to begin this process? And obviously, the man hours setting it up are significant. Once it gets running, it'll have different man hours. It's also my understanding from talking to the headmaster that eventually, once you've got it up and running, it's actually easier for the teacher to actually do their grade book work, I believe. It actually saves time for them once they have that training. So I guess that's something I just want to, it's more of a comment. I think that's an area when we get into the budget, as we talk about the entire technology, what is that dollar value that we need to place on this? Okay, Ms. Laraba?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Rosmer. What is the plan to include more teachers? I mean, we have 30 right now. How soon can we have more teachers involved?
We haven't answered that question yet. How soon can we? As soon as we choose to. As soon as we choose, it's some of it is we need to see it work. Any new initiative like this takes some momentum. So we're building that momentum right now. And so what we're hopeful of is people are going to see this working. They're going to see their colleagues using it. We'll build up the data to say this is working well and parents really like it and parents want to see it and they want to see you using it. And so we haven't, we've thought about it. Do we bring it out and have everybody using it at the start of next school year? That sounds reasonable, but we're going to see how the spring goes.
Ms. Martin?
And I think this kind of draws from Ms. Laraba's question as well. You have the 30 teachers who are participating at this point, but really any student at the high school is able to get kind of that baseline information. So their attendance stuff is already there, no matter if their teacher's participating. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. And this is as you kind of broadcast out, as you think about how you're going to be dealing with it in the future. I think it might be, I'm assuming the capacity would be there, that, it's something we should include in our handbook that goes out at the beginning of the year. The sign-up sheet can be included in that as an appendix so that as parents are making those, reviewing the rules, I know they're required to sign off on having received it. I believe the students are as well. That could be one medium that could really get a big push.
Right.
Hopefully as people are, kind of familiarizing themselves with what the high school has to offer.
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, we're looking at the start of next school year, whether we have the entire staff involved yet as a requirement or still a voluntary kind of thing. But that is going to be a great time because that is when paperwork gets out and people are looking at it. We'll have the whole influx of 9th grade families who will see this not as a new thing, but just that's part of Lowell High School, and it's really going to grow at that point.
Yeah, and I think it's also, its evolution, it continues, starts from the high school down. As you roll it out, people in the elementary school get it, the middle schools have it, you come right into the high school, it's just part of the norm. Mr. Conway?
Yeah, I think that, I think when the teachers see that it's successful, because anything new, needless to say, people are always very skeptical. And I think if they see that there's a success to it, and they're also, it's a, taking a look at it, it's going to be actually an aid for the students and the parents to get them involved. I think it's going to perpetuate success because that word will spread very quickly. And I'm sure the teachers will be able to come to the table and explain the pluses and the minuses, and then we can perhaps tweak the system if we have to. But again, if it's a system that certainly can help make things more effective on both sides, I'm sure the teachers will buy into that.
That's certainly what we're counting on.
Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be nice if, as Ms. Martin said, next year we can put this in the handbook. And I'm looking at it like when you open a bank account, you have online banking, right? So is it that simple that everybody has access to it that wants it, right?
Right.
Okay, so it'd be great if we can do that for next year and just, it's got to be available for next year. We've been pushing this for years, so it'd be
Part
great
of
if
our,
we could do it.
part of our plan is to send this family portal letter home through the 8th grade this year, so that we get them back before the end of the school year, which gives us the summer to process at least all the 8th graders, so that when they come in, they're ready to go. The forms are being handed out as part of the new student packets during registration now. So we're trying to catch the parents as they're walking into the door, as well as the students, and they're explaining the whole process through there.
Excellent. And I just have one quick, so when do you pick your own password after you get your password and log on?
We're assigning a 6-digit random number,
Okay.
because I felt that random numbers were easier to deal with in upper and lower case. Once they sign on, it asks them to give their own password. Once they give their own password, we have no idea of what it is. It's an encrypted field that we can't get at. So there are safeguards built in that part of getting an account is you have to have an email address. That email address is provided just like with your online banking. If you forget your password, you can tell you click the I forgot my password button, it asks you a security question, then it emails you a new password to be reset.
Okay.
through your
And is
email.
the ID, the login ID, can that just be your email to make it simple, so nobody forgets?
The login ID is your first name dot last name.
Oh, all right. So
because
that way you can't forget that.
Yeah,
So that's
hopefully.
good. All right,
Our challenge is
pretty
always to make
simple
sure
for
we
you.
spelled the parent's name right.
excellent. All right, thank you. Sounds great.
Good. I think it's a very powerful tool, and I appreciate the fact that the high school is taking up the initiative. I think what we need to do as far as a budget process is really understand what resources we need to provide professional development to the teachers. I think that's what the administration can provide to the committee. What type of resources are needed to implement this so we can begin this next year as a pilot in the middle school and in the elementary schools. I think, as Mr. Leary said, Mr. Leary said, I already forgot my name. Mr. Leahy said it's important because we've really tried to push this for a long time now. It's time to get running and really put the resources, if we can, into it because it's a powerful tool for the parent. So I don't know if there's any other questions or concerns. Mayor Malinowski.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Will the students or parents, for that matter, be able to access this information from a smartphone, or do they have to do it from a computer?
It's internet-based, so in theory, if they can get the internet on the phone, they can
Okay.
probably access it.
Okay,
I can get it on my phone,
okay.
which is web-based phone, and they are making sure currently to make sure that it is iPad compatible, because
Okay.
there are some different things, but it's a straight website. It's not a flash website. It's not a lot of bells and whistles as far as pictures and stuff like that you see in some of this website. So it's a straight-ahead website, so there aren't a lot of quirks from getting it from one platform to another. It works in Safari, it works in Google Chrome, it works in Mozilla, Firefox, it works in Internet Explorer, and a variety of other platforms that are out there.
Could a student set up a reminder notice on their phone that they have an assignment due in 48 hours and?
Doesn't do that as of yet.
Doesn't do that okay. Thank you.
But if they have a phone,
They
their
do-
phones
that's
already
true.
do that.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. Leahy, then Ms. Martin.
Just to follow up on what the mayor said, is that like you can get an app for your phone and get to this?
There's no app for that, it's just a straight website.
Okay, because a friend of mine was showing me, his kids go to a school in California, and he called it an app, but he pulls it right up on his phone.
You probably put a
Goes right
shortcut
to
on
the
your phone.
website and-
I would imagine with the change in ownership between X2 and Follett, as well as the things that they're integrating for the fall, that probably is not far behind.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Martin? You're all set? Thank you very much. I guess I'll
Larry?
take I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, real quick. I just publicly want to thank Mr. Liu, who's put hours into this and getting it set up, teaching, giving the development for our teachers, training for them in groups, individual teachers. He's put a lot of time into this, so I really want to thank him, and also the teachers who are getting involved with this as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
On behalf of the committee, thank you guys for taking the initiative. We appreciate it. I guess I'll take a motion of a report of progress.
Motion for report of progress.
Second? All in favor? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys, appreciate it.